Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my finale file, and I'm going to select a file that I know is the way that I want it to be for exporting to Music XML and eventually getting into Dorico and then ultimately Cubase and making a realistic recording. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this file under the export into a Music XML. And I'm going to export this into a folder that I've already got prepared for this project. And I'm just going to hit save. It's going to ask me if I want to replace it because I've actually already done this before. But I wanted to show you the process from the very beginning. So it creates the Music XML file, which we're going to use to translate to Dorico. I'm going to go ahead and quit Finale. Sure, I'll save that. Then I'm going to open Dorico 5. And I'm going to open this XML. So I'm going to open or import files. I'm going to come over to my folder, Mac Audio, Capstone Project, Notation Files. I'm going to come to Strong, and I'm going to grab this XML file. So this is just going to bring it in raw as an XML. And of course, there are going to be plenty of things that we're going to need to clean up. But this does bring in some of your basic, it brings in the MIDI notes. It does a pretty good job. I see that, and I'm learning this for the first time, by the way, and working through this process. But I can see that it's brought in not only the MIDI and timings, but we've got things like key signatures and time signatures, and even it looks like some bringing in some dynamics and other things. So as we work through this together, we'll figure out how much good stuff it brought in and what is going on. So the first thing I have noticed is when I've come over here to Setup, which is where I'm going to do my first task, which is creating a template of standardized instruments. So I'm going to be working in this project on 5 different band pieces, but the idea is that we create a template that we can bring our band pieces into and not have to rework this every time. And so to that outcome, I'm just going to look through and notice a few things. First of all, I noticed that it brought the clarinets in C, so we'll have to change those to B flat. But here it looks like most of this stuff is brought in. And we've got euphonium, and we're going to have to make some choices about that. Obviously, when we record, we only need one euphonium track. But when we print and produce the PDFs that people will purchase from our website, we'll need to make both a treble clef and a bass clef. And Dorico is strong on doing those kind of things, so we'll figure this out. So we're going to, essentially our process is going to be to set up this entire score, and then we'll set those for playback as well, choose the virtual instruments, and then we'll move from Dorico into Cubase and make some even more tweaks with expression controls. We'll do as much as we can in Dorico, and one of the elements of this project is to compare just the native things in Dorico to how much better it is if you take it into a DAW like Cubase, Pro Tools, Logic, or something else as audio or MIDI to audio, and if there's any improvement there, or if Dorico can produce for us a realistic sounding reference recording. So that's the first thing we're going to do, and so just we'll do a couple instruments here. So I'm going to take this clarinet and these extra little dots, and we're going to do change instrument. And I'm going to come over here and select woodwinds, of course. come down to my clarinet, and we're just going to select clarinet here. We're going to choose the key is going to be B flat. Now, some of you out there may be watching and might say, well, why'd you do it that way? Well, I'm learning this program as I go, so there might be a quicker way to do this. But this is what I've seen and from the things that I've explored on how to do this. And so we're just going to change these things. And we'll check on some of the other instruments to make sure that they're transposing correctly. Instruments like French horn and other things, just to make sure that it's in the proper way. And of course, okay, so now we've got 3, 2, and 1, but of course we don't want them in that order. So the nice thing about Dorico is just simply drag those up there and you've got it. So let's check on our alto saxophone. Obviously, alto saxophone should be in E flat. So let's see if we can discover that. I'm not even sure where we check that. So I'm once again learning as you go. Let's do edit instrument definition. Maybe that'll show us. So we've got alto saxophone, English. Okay. Number of staff lines. Do we have anything that tells us about our transposition? Surely we do. Here we go. Transposition. Okay. In a transposing score, written middle C. Okay. Here we can make some transposition changes. Okay, so let's do this. We're going to come over here. We're going to change instrument, and we're going to select alto saxophone from the woodwinds and just see what the difference would be. So we're going to change this. Then we'll come over here and look at the instrument definition. See if anything has changed down here in transposition. Yeah. So here we can see that transposition says when we play a C4, we're going to get a B sharp 3. Okay. Well, that's interesting because that is not what we're looking for. All right, so I'm going to have to, because in my book, it would be an E flat. Not an E flat 4, but an E flat 5. If you're playing a C4, then the transposition should be an E flat. But let's find out about that, all right? We'll hit cancel. Discard changes. Okay. So we're going to go woodwinds, alto saxophone. Add. So now I've added an instrument right under my alto saxophone, I think. So yes, I've got an alto sax 1 and alto sax 2. So let's look at the difference between the two. So here's the 1. You can see the transposition. We got another B sharp 3. Interesting. Well, we will have to do some research about that. All right, so this is the first step, and apparently I need to educate myself just a little more, but that's okay. That's why I am doing this. So I will see you just a little bit later.